Welcome to A Drink of Wisdom with Jay Wise and Nathan Drinkard. I'm your host, Cody Ward. Thank you for spending some of your time with us tonight. As a reminder to all our listeners, besides being on all your favorite podcast platforms, A Drink of Wisdom is also on YouTube with each show segment available. Head on over, and if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate your subscription. What's going on, guys? Back for a Friday. A lot of stuff to get into. How's it going?
Yeah, NBA just closed out its season. Didn't expect to have this much NBA stuff to talk about, but we got it. So let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk some sports, baby. Go ahead and pull up a seat because you know we got to speak. Let's get into it. Let's roll, baby.
All right, on episode 9, Maury moseys off, Le'Veon leaves for KC, and we preview the biggest matchups in the NFL and college football. Let's go ahead and start tonight in the NBA with another big head coaching hire. The Los Angeles Clippers have hired Tyronn Lue as their next head coach. Former Cavs coach and assistant to Doc Rivers this past season inked a 5-year deal to take the new-look Clippers forward after Rivers was fired upon their early exit from the bubble. Lue coached the Cavaliers to a championship during the 2015-2016 season and followed it up with 2 more finals appearances, losing to the KD-led Warriors both times. So, Drink, is Lue what the Clippers need to stay competitive with the Lakers, or does this move feel like they sort of settled?
Okay, so both of those questions are a little tough to answer. I don't think they settle. I think Tyronn Lue is definitely a top candidate available in the market. Make no mistake about it. And we know last year it was a lot of teams trying to get in the Ty Lue sweepstakes as well, but he settled to be a first assistant to Doc Rivers. With that said, I do think it's a psychological win for the Clippers, being that we know who the Lakers gonna roll out, and who better than to get one of the coaches that coached them in one of his championships in Ty Lue. So, with that said, I'm not mad at it, but I don't think they settled either. And I do want to say this because I find this pretty ironic. Do you know in Tyronn Lue's last 2 stops in the year 1 or 2, he was the first assistant, and then in the very next year, he was the head coach. Go back and look at in Cleveland. Yeah, I'm just saying it's a coincidence. He was the first assistant. Next thing you know, that guy gets fired, and Tyronn, he just slides right on into the seat. So, take that for what it's worth. But look, here's the deal. In today's league, you don't see many Phil Jacksons. And what do I mean by that? You don't see many Phil Jacksons. You don't see many guys that can handle these stars, coach stars. Usually, if they have 1 star on the team, they're fine. But when you start getting the stars 2 and 3, it takes a little bit more. You got to be able to mesh those egos, mesh that talent. This guy going to do this guy going to do that. Hey, shut the hell up and sit down. This was going to happen. You don't see many guys that can handle that like Phil Jackson. And what we found out in the Last Dance documentary, he handled a lot of BS on that team. So I bring that up to say Lue is one of the few guys that had 2 superstar talents on the team that seemingly didn't like each other as much as we thought they did once all the dirty laundry came out, and he still made it work long enough for them to have a 3-year run and we know that the Cavaliers made it to the finals 4 straight years, but Kyrie Irving wasn't on the team in the 4th year. So they did make that 3-year run together, all together with, Kyrie, LeBron James, and one Kevin Love. So why do I bring that up? What we seen out of the Clippers in the bubble was this. We start hearing a lot of bickering, I don't understand why, Kawhi gets to do this. Then you got Paul George out here saying, hey, we need to play better. We need to step it up. And people are like, are you kidding me? What did you need to step it up. And he's like, knock it off. You got Lemon Pepper Lou in Magic City. You got Montrezl Harrell that didn't show up until the playoffs started. You had all these different things. And like Jay points out, some of that is coaching. They lack leadership. I like to think that Kawhi didn't do his part in the leadership department. Neither did Doc Rivers. But at the end of the day, they needed leadership. It's kind of like the Cleveland Browns. They had all the talent in the world. They just didn't have the right guy running it. Well, now you get Ty Lue in. We've seen Ty Lue in this position before. Hell, if you can coach LeBron James, I feel like you can coach anybody because that guy is an entity in himself when he come rolling into town. So if you can handle that, I think he should be able to handle Kawhi, Paul George, et cetera, et cetera. Don't let that get too far ahead of you. And all those guys, mix them up and let's see. But it's one reason why I like this hire a lot more. I think Tyronn Lue got to sit in that first assistant seat and watch all the things that Doc Rivers did wrong with these guys, and he gets to fix those things he's seen done wrong or things that could have been done better. So he gets the benefit of being there, but he don't get blamed for it, if that makes sense. So now when he's the head guy now, he gets to go up there and be like, well, I wouldn't have let, Kawhi Leonard do all that. He's driving all the way from San Diego every game and almost missing the team bus. I'm going to nip that in the bud now. I'm not going to let Paul George do this. I'm going to adjust that right now. Harold, whatever the case might be, he got to see those things that Doc Rivers might not had buttoned up, and he gets to button them up. So we'll see. With that said, let's go ahead and be prepared to see some trades or some guys leaving. Because I can tell you right now, it's going down. Some of these guys are out of here. Let me tell you that right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys out of here was Paul George himself. Yes, you gave up the form, but I'm pretty sure Steve Ballmer ain't happy with his investment, because one thing we know about businessmen, when they invest some money into something, they want to see a return on their investments. And they didn't get that from Paul George. They might have got it out of Kawhi. They didn't get it out of Paul George. So let's just say, let's not be surprised if Paul George is wearing a different jersey come the beginning of the season. And then we know Montrezl Harrell will probably be a guy that gets looked sought after in free agency this year. Lemon Pepper Lou, he might still be in Magic City. We don't know what we're going to get out of these guys, but we do know we got Tyronn Lue. I hear Chauncey Billups is going to be added to the staff. Larry Drew is going to be on the staff. So it seems to be that he's assembling a pretty good staff, a championship level staff. Because let's not sneeze over Chauncey Billups. One thing I can say I know is his name has been brought up in multiple head coaching job searches, multiple GM searches as well. He seemed like he got his head in the right place. And so this is his chance to audition to be a head coach further down the line. So that seems to be a good choice as a first assistant. So with all that said, to answer your question, man, I think it's a good choice. I think it's a high-level choice. It's a championship-level choice, if I must say. And I do think it's one of those things that where you say the Clippers got another leg up on the Lakers as of now. We'll see how that turns out. But, yeah, I like the choice, and I agree with it.
Yeah, a couple points right away. First of all, I have to get this in there because you bring up Chauncey Billups. I think it's important, and for there's something more important even than him coming in to be on Tyronn Lue's staff. I imagine that means he's leaving ESPN. So ESPN's, NBA Countdown, halftime shows, all these little things ESPN does, you can go ahead and forget about it because Chauncey Billups was about the only thing they had going for him. It's going to be Jalen Rose throwing out random things, and we know Paul Pierce is just – he's just not – let's just put it like this. He is not the truth in terms of his analysis that he's bringing to the table. But in terms of I also want to throw this out there real quick. Whoever placed the bet on Tyronn Lue replacing Doc Rivers before Jason Kidd replaced Frank Vogel, you won. And you probably won a whole lot if they had such a bet out there. You did very well for yourself. But in regards to Tyronn Lue and the Clippers, you're absolutely right. You don't find there's no Phil Jackson that was available. So I don't see a mega home run that they would be able to hit in this situation. This is probably as good as they probably could have done. But it doesn't feel like a super huge win, especially when you consider I think they got a lot more work to do. I think more changes will be coming, especially in personnel. But I really, other than being youthful, I don't know if Tyronn Lue is all that different than Doc Rivers. I think Doc Rivers had a reputation of being a player's coach. He's handled multiple superstars before. You go back to the Big Three in Boston. You go back to Lob City that they had before the arrival of Kawhi. But this was something where the Clippers didn't meet expectations. And I mean, when you got an owner like Steve Ballmer, he's going to make changes quickly. He's not going to stand for such a disappointment that they came up with.
I do got one question for you, Jay. With that said, would you say at any point in Doc Rivers' career he coached the best player in the NBA at that time?
No. But that brings me to an unknown about Tyronn Lue. Let's think about this. Pretty much anytime you coach LeBron James, that does come with its challenges, as you say, because I mean he's got a reputation for being somewhat hard to coach. Sometimes he is the coach, as David Blatt, the guy Tyronn Lue replaced in Cleveland, found out. So you have those challenges to work through, but you also have the best basketball player on the planet. Well, it's been that way for many years now. And he continues to refine that standard for himself, and especially come postseason time. So you have that to your advantage. And think about the coaches that he's taken to the NBA Finals and what they have done with him and what they've done without him. You can go back to Mike Brown in 2007, the first time he made the Finals. What has Mike Brown did since then? Nothing to that level. We like Eric Spoelstra, and you mentioned him during the last show. You look at him as the top 3 coach. I'd say, yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I'd say minimum top 5. I just, I haven't made a coaches list recently. We got a lot of respect for him, and he just came out the NBA Finals. But when Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, when LeBron went back to Cleveland, he had his struggles, and then you move now to Frank Vogel. Frank Vogel just coming off the championship that they just won, but what did he do before then? He couldn't find his way past LeBron. So what I'm saying with all that, we only really have the Tyronn Lue coaching, his experience as a head coach. It's all been with LeBron James. So now we get a chance to really truly. It's hard to evaluate coaches when you have LeBron, because is it really the coach or is it really LeBron just carrying everybody on his shoulders? So we're gonna find out as he gets this chance with the Clippers how good he is. I think that's going to be somewhat of a challenge for him.
Well, so if in the pecking order, where's Kawhi Leonard in the pecking order of best players in the NBA? Would you consider him top 5?
Yes, I would. I'd probably say top 3.
Top 3. So, I mean, he goes from LeBron to Kawhi Leonard. So let's say Western Conference Finals, is it going to be one of them things where it's like, well, he went from LeBron to Kawhi Leonard. Do we really know how good he is? Like, what would he have to do to get the credit to be looked at as a top coach? I think the Clippers out there, it's going to depend on how they retool. But to me, if the Clippers, for some reason, let's just say, I don't anticipate they do this, but if they bring everybody back, the same exact crew, to me, you got to win a championship, I think. I don't know if they necessarily do that. I don't know if they'll want to take that chance. But depending on how things turn out, expectations with Kawhi and just the owner, and what a disappointment they were last season. I think expectations are going to be really high, even though it's going to be a competitive and deep Western Conference. But I think the Clippers ultimately, they're going to be competitive. I don't see this. I mean, you got Kawhi Leonard, whatever else, whoever you put around him, if you put some competent pieces around him, you're going to be fine. But you think about how all in they went in this during this season with the big trade of Marcus Morris, the offseason acquisition of Paul George, in which they gave up a boatload of assets, the Reggie Jackson trade. It's going to be there's going to be some. I can't imagine that they completely stand pat. I don't think they're going to do that. And the biggest reason is Paul George is quite simply not a superstar. At this stage, he's not. I'm not saying he can't regain that status, but we just got to call it what it is. He is not a superstar, and that is a huge reason why the Clippers came up short this year. I will say, though, if they choose to keep Paul George, if they keep these guys around, you're absolutely right on this point. Tyronn Lue, with his interactions with LeBron James and being able to be that level of a communicator and a player's coach, if he can handle LeBron James, he can handle anyone. And I think that he does have that to his advantage. He's also considerably younger than Doc Rivers. He's only 43 years of age.
So you got to believe he's going to be able to relate to these guys better than most older coaches would. So he's got that at his advantage. There's definitely good things. There's some negatives too, but I do think in the end, this was probably the best choice they had.
Yeah, the situations really are remarkably similar for Ty Lue. You know, he comes in as an assistant, then he gets to take over as the head coach for a team that not only wasn't really struggling, but had an A1, no kidding, two-way superstar. You know, LeBron, now he's got Kawhi, and the situations really are remarkably similar. So I guess if you're looking at it from that perspective, it is really it's encouraging to think of the outlook for the Clippers, knowing, okay, he's getting pretty much the same deck of cards he was dealt the first time. We've never seen Ty Lue take over a wrecked roster and have to start it over from scratch. And when you talk about how good a coach can be, to me in modern NBA, it's either you have a bunch of really good players like you're a Brad Stevens or a Nick Nurse or a this past season, not the season before, or a guy like that, or you're or Spoelstra, even, for example, has taken that kind of motley crew of guys and put a team together that got all the way to the finals. You either do that or you're managing superstars, and I think that both of those have unique challenges. Guys like the Celtics, are more coachable because, everyone's got to kind of pull their own weight versus you have to manage some of these guys. And we saw it wreck the Clippers this past season. We didn't hear so much about it until they left the bubble, but when they left the bubble, it was all of a sudden, oh, well, this guy was doing this, and Kawhi was riding a bike from San Diego to the team bus, and Paul George was in there, putting whoopee cushions on people's chairs, and just like, it's like all this crap just comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, is that how it actually was? Oh, okay, okay. So he's got to do that. But if you remember back when he took over the Cavaliers, it was sort of the same situation. He had to get Kyrie and Kevin Love, who were already established. That's the other problem the Clippers have. You have an established group. You have Harrell, Williams, etc. You have this group that was already established. And then you had Kawhi and Paul George come in the door, and then it shook everything up. And like I said, when you put all these guys in a box and shake it up, you don't always get something perfect that falls out. You saw that rift where Kawhi's taking off games and Paul George is screwing around, doing his 10-point whatever, 4 for 40 shot games, and then it creates that bit of a rift, right? So in the same sense, the Cavs had that problem where you had a little bit of problems with Kyrie and Love trying to get LeBron work back in. LeBron comes back in, I'm going to fix all this and take it over. But, he also called LeBron out a little bit. LeBron, I remember there was something about him not being in perfect shape, or maybe not taking it as serious as he should. And he kind of got on LeBron about it, and everyone was like, you've been here a week. You LeBron, you know who that is? But he did it anyway because you're the coach. It's what you're supposed to do. So in the same sense, I think he can come into the Clippers and say, look, Kawhi, this load management crap and you taking off every third game and this ain't happening no more. Paul George, get your crap together. And the rest of you, let's shape up and let's go win the championship. Quit the crap, quit the high school clique crap, and let's put a team together. We saw the Lakers do it. They were a better team. They were a more cohesive, chemistry-oriented team, and that's what got them through the bubble, where the Clippers didn't have that, even if they probably had as good, maybe if not a little bit better talent. So Lue has a challenge, but I feel like this is a similar challenge to what he had in Cleveland, and if there was ever a situation where he might be able to succeed, to me, this is where it's going to be.